Jonathan Sacerdoti helps us break down all the biggest revelations from Volume 1 of Harry and Meghan's Netflix docu-series, plus what the royal family thinks.
So far, yes, I don't think there was very much in there that was particularly new or that will have worried them too much. It was repetition of the same old gripes, repetition of the same sort of stuff. So I think they may be breathing a sigh of relief on that front. But, there are 3 more of these to come.
And the palace wasn't reached for comment. Harry and Meghan clarify privacy statement. And Harry seems to draw attention to the tension with Prince William.
They're really splitting hairs to tell the story that they want to tell and make sure that the narrative goes in the direction that they want it to go in.
Plus, Kate is ready for Christmas. Ryan Reynolds meets King Charles. And we've got so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina and that is Christine. And wow, do we have a lot to talk about.
No more quiet weeks for us. It's all lots of juicy gossip and stories to share.
So much. But before we get into it, let's see what you guys had to say about last week's show. Jen Holmes says the docu-series was well done and shows a couple in love, controlling their narrative and making money from it. Liked the first 3 episodes of 3 series. We're going to break it all down a little bit later on. So we'll save our commentary for that, but lots to say. Diana says, I would love for the Sussexes to move on, leave the past behind them, concentrate on being authentic, truthful, and kind, stop trying to upstage the royal family, and keep their more rabid supporters at bay. I have seen some wish death to the Cambridge children. Jesus. A little kindness would go a long way to healing family rifts on both sides. Life is too short to be in combat mode all the time. Do agree with that. And then Jacqueline says, I love the hypocrisy. Harry states it's a dirty game while being the masters of the dirty game. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people either really liked it, really hated it, not too many in between. So lots of opinions. All right, well, let's get into our royal roundup. And before we break down Harry and Meghan's documentary, let's see what the senior members of the royal family are up to. The Princess of Wales is in the holiday spirit ahead of her upcoming Christmas concert. She wore a festive, sparkling red dress for her appearance in a new promo for Royal Carols Together at Christmas. The second annual Christmas Carol concert, which is sponsored by the Royal Foundation, is going to be filled with performances, carols, and so much more. I know that we can't watch it over here, but I'm sure it's something that you guys are really very much looking forward to.
It is. I'm really excited for it. It's going to be one of the biggest things being aired on Christmas Eve. And it's been so great to learn about the program as more details come out, who's performing. We know that King Charles and Queen Camilla will be there with other members of the royal family. I'm so sure that Kate's family, the Middletons, her parents, her brother and sister will all be there. So it's a real coming together. It's a real family affair. And for Kate to have that kind of support in such a big project, I think really says a lot about the family and how they support each other and support these big projects.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm sure there will be many dedications to Queen Elizabeth. Not sure if maybe Kate will play the piano again, but a lot to look forward to. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I do wonder if we're going to get another surprise. Obviously, last year, Kate surprised everyone by playing the piano alongside one of the performers. So I wonder if this year we're going to see another piano performance, or is she going to, do an opera? I don't know.
Bust out the drum set.
Right?
Bring it. I can't wait. Christmas cards are in full swing, and King Charles is sending his first Christmas card as monarch with a photo taken just days before he took the throne. The picture of the sovereign and Queen Consort Camilla was taken at the Braemar Games in Scotland by photographer Samir Hussain, who's been on the show with us several times. This was back on September 3rd. He is in focus wearing a tweed jacket and a vest with a red, green, and gold striped tie. Camilla is all smiles at him while wearing a green coat with a red tartan label. The photo is a close-up, so recipients don't get to enjoy the monarch's green tartan kilt, which he accessorized with red knee socks and black shoes. And it says on the card, wishing you a very happy Christmas and a new year. The Prince and Princess of Wales also revealed their Christmas card, which is absolutely adorable. The picture shows the family of 5 holding hands, all dressed very casually for a sunny stroll. They are all wearing jeans and shorts and sneakers. I absolutely love this. They look adorable, cute and casual, and ready for the Christmas season.
It is sort of a marking of the royal festive season, the Christmas cards, the carol concert, all leading up to Sandringham, which will be, Christmas Day at Sandringham, which will take place again as normal.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like things are getting back to normal, and we love seeing these happy royal faces as we get ready to celebrate the new year and the Christmas holiday. Well, this was something to celebrate. King Charles and Duchess Camilla spent time with Ryan Reynolds and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia star Bob McElhenney to celebrate the actor's purchase of a UK soccer club. So Ryan and Robert, they met the royals in Wrexham, Wales on December 9th, and the foursome chatted at the Association Football Club, and Charles and Camilla inquired about the redevelopment of the club, which they bought back in 2021. Actually, an FX docu-series about the actor's unexpected purchase premiered back in August, so I'm sure that there was a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. I absolutely love this.
I think this was such an unexpected pairing. I know a lot of people who thought about maybe going to see them in Wales and didn't because the weather was terrible.
Oh, no.
I got messages from them saying, whoa, if I knew Ryan Reynolds was going to be there, it's a different story. What an unlikely pairing.
What an unlikely pairing. I love that Ryan posted a photo of himself and King Charles with the caption, "Welcome to Wrexham Season 2, Charles in charge." It's so great.
Love that.
I love it so much. But yeah, definitely some fun photos and a fun outing despite the bad weather. Well, this is interesting. So Princess Anne and Prince Edward are officially counselors of state for their brother, King Charles, and their appointments have major implications for Prince Harry. So the Princess Royal and the Earl of Wessex were named to their new positions as counselors of state, and they can perform constitutional duties on behalf of their brother if he is abroad or ill. Now, the positions usually go to the monarch's spouse, followed by the first four people over the age of 21 who are in line to the throne. That lineup includes Camilla, Prince William, Prince Harry, Prince Andrew, and Princess Beatrice. Well, the Duke of Sussex and his uncle, of course, are no longer senior working royals. So Parliament decided back in November to reinstate Anne and Edward. So seems like they're officially out as, working members of the royal family.
Definitely. And, Anne and Edward have served in these roles before. And so it just kind of made more sense. Mm-hmm. It was sort of an outdated rule that didn't make sense for what the monarchy looks like in 2022. So this is just sort of a more logical step in the unlikely event that the king, queen, and Prince William are all out of the country.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's build some royalty. It's what everybody's been talking about and everybody will continue to talk about this week. Harry and Meghan's documentary and some of the biggest revelations. So overall, what were your thoughts on the documentary?
It was really sweet and totally uneventful. I think these first three episodes, we all tuned in for the big drama, and it really was just their love story, which is what, to be fair, that's what Meghan and Harry said this was supposed to be, them telling their love story. Mm-hmm. Now, the next three episodes are, remain to be seen, but these first three episodes were just kind of sweet, lots of selfies and kissing pictures and sort of sharing their experience in the early days of their relationship.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, kind of uneventful, kind of things we already knew about that they said in their CBS documentary. We had some little tidbits here and there. Obviously her niece speaking out for the very first time, which I thought was interesting in their close relationship. That I wasn't expecting that, and how she wasn't allowed to come to the wedding. That was interesting. I mean, seeing the early stages of the relationship, how they met on Instagram, how they kept their love story under wraps for a while, how they were going to go out one big last hurrah before the news was public. There was definitely some sweet moments. They definitely seem like they're very much in love. But yes, nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth shattering, which I think the royal family probably appreciated, at least for now.
Yeah. I agree. I loved hearing from Doria. She sort of said something that's really funny. She says, the last few years have certainly been interesting. And I do feel for Doria, who really was thrust into a very public, position, sort of unwantingly. But it was interesting to hear from these friends about those early years, mm-hmm. I think, before everything sort of tumbled downward. But unsurprisingly, this docu-series is being meticulously fact-checked, yes, much more than any other normal documentary or docu-series ever would be. And there's been a lot of response, a lot of, articles clarifying or sharing a different point of view or things like that. So I think it's interesting to see this happening, just the fact-checking and the response. It's no other documentary that I've ever seen or heard of has received this much. I don't even think speculation is the term, but it's being put under a microscope.
Yes. Yes. Oh, 100%. They are nitpicking every little thing they said,
Right, exactly.
picking up, even like when Harry's saying that he, married for love, when other members of the royal family are kind of marrying for, image or things like that. I mean, that was kind of a little bit of a dig. And,
Right.
but, blocking out memories of his mom, which was really sad to hear about how he shoulders responsibility for Meghan's dad, because if he wasn't in the picture, her dad may very well be in the picture as well. So it seems like that they have a lot on their shoulders. But it does seem like, they're kind of living their life. We see a little bit of Archie and Lilibet and things like that. And, they are, speaking their story on their terms, whether people like it or not, or interested. I still question what the end game of this all is,
Right.
and where they kind of fit in the, celebrity scope, royal scope, like what exactly their lane is. I'm still trying to figure that out. And I think they are too. But it was interesting, her story about them talking about how they met William and Kate for the very first time, and how she's a hugger and they're like just as formal behind closed doors as they are in front of.
But so many of these things, what really struck me, so many of these things could have been avoided or improved for Meghan with better preparation. The story about how they're in the car on the way to a luncheon with the Queen, and Harry casually mentions she has to learn to curtsy, and that's really something Harry should have a conversation with his, I think, then girlfriend with way before you're in the car on the way. Yeah. And there was a couple of other comments like that, like meeting any in-laws, you sort of get a feel for, are they huggers? No, we're quite a formal family. I just feel like at many points I really felt for Meghan, maybe because I am an American married to an Englishman who's moved to a different country, that Harry owed it to her to prepare her better. And that was one of the things that I was left feeling very strongly about, was how much of this maybe could have been avoided by Harry actually taking the time to prepare this woman for this world.
You're so right. He kind of minimized his role in the royal family to make her, maybe he thought he was making her feel more comfortable, but in the end it definitely backfired. You're so right. Like when you are inviting your, future brother-in-law and his wife, and you show up in ripped jeans and bare feet, and they're sitting there very formal. Yeah, I would feel uncomfortable too, being like, why didn't you warn me? Why I would have, I agree with you.
There were several times that, Meghan talks about a negative experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, you should have been warned. And the responsibility of that really was on Harry. Yeah. And I don't know how I'm sure because they talk so openly about therapy, they've probably been to some semblance of couples counseling. So somehow Meghan doesn't blame Harry for any of this. I wouldn't be, that forgiving necessarily, because I do think just so many of these situations felt very familiar and relatable, meeting your in-laws for the first time. Okay, is your mom a hugger? Is she, more formal? What should I wear? Mm-hmm. And that was on Harry to prepare her for that.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. And, then we see the teaser for this upcoming week, and it seems like, Harry says that the firm would cover up stories for Prince William, tell some lies about him, but not for Harry. And it seems like he's blaming, at least from what we can see in these 2 minutes, that maybe more shouldering the blame on the firm rather than the family, which he kind of did in the CBS interview as well. I just feel like we're rehashing a lot of the same things we already knew.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, and I'll probably mention this half a dozen more times, that Netflix is trying to sell a big scandalous story. Mm-hmm. Sell subscriptions and make money, where that might not be what Harry is actually saying. So just like you said, it sounds like he may, in the larger picture, be placing the blame on the firm or on how the media portrayed a story, whereas Netflix is pulling that tidbit to blame it on the family. Mm-hmm. And I hope that viewers and people, just following this story are really careful to follow what's actually being said, because so much of the conversation is about how the media twists things, and therefore the media is going to twist things.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And, the docu-series did issue a disclaimer stating that they did ask the royal family for comments and claims made in the Netflix project, which a source did tell us that was not true. During the first 3 episodes, it said, something flashed across the screen saying members of the royal family declined to comment on the content within the series. Well, the source told us that they were not approached for comment regarding the content of the series. Well, royal reporter Omid Scobie said Netflix is standing by their disclaimer, with an insider saying that the household offices for Prince William, Princess Kate, King Charles, and Queen Consort Camilla were contacted and given sufficient time to respond. I would imagine maybe it didn't get up to the very tippy top. I don't know, but I can't imagine Netflix not reaching out for comment.
I do think this is an example of twisting the narrative, because it's not that they didn't decline to respond.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't respond. And the latest that I saw was that an email was sent, but it wasn't from a veritable email. They must get hundreds of emails in a day. Mm-hmm. And if it looks a bit sketchy, they probably just mark it as spam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This really shows how degraded the lines of communications are between whatever Team Sussex is doing and the royal firm,
mm-hmm.
the royal staff, the royal household. And I think that that's very telling that, the Sussexes absolutely were not comfortable enough to follow up on that email chain. But it is a big difference between declined to comment and just never replied to an email.
Right. Yes. No, totally. Yeah. So the very fine line of specific words can change an entire thing. All right. Well, this was interesting. So Harry and Meghan did address the narrative that they left their roles for the royal family for their private life. So their press secretary told the New York Times the same day that the docu-series dropped that their statement announcing their decision to step back mentions nothing of privacy and reiterates their desire to continue their roles and public duties. Any suggestion otherwise speaks to a key point of this series. They are choosing to share their story on their terms. She concluded that it's entirely untrue narrative to suggest they asked for privacy when announcing their decision. So just to go back to their initial statement back in 2020, they said, "We now plan to balance our time between the United Kingdom and North America, continue to honor our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and our patronages. This geographic balance will enable us to raise our son with an appreciation for the royal tradition into which he was born, while also providing our family with the space to focus on the next chapter, including the new launch of our charitable entity." So yes, they never mentioned anything about privacy in that statement, but I do feel like that they have talked about that time and time again.
They absolutely have.
Mm-hmm.
Even way back when Meghan was Harry's girlfriend, he released that whole statement about how we needed to, she wanted privacy. This feels to me a lot like that comment Meghan makes where in the engagement interview, she says, "No, I never Googled him." And then we find out she didn't Google him, but she looked him up on Instagram and did a little Instagram stalk of him. They're really splitting hairs to tell the story that they want to tell and make sure that the narrative goes in the direction that they want it to go in.
Yeah.
So now they're saying, no, we didn't say we wanted privacy, when there were so many other times that they expressed wanting privacy.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's splitting hairs,
It is. She knew who Prince Has was. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you must be living under a rock. You know who the royal family is. Like, let's be honest.
No one ever bought that story. I think when she said, "Oh, I didn't Google him, I Instagrammed him," we were like,
Yep. Well, Samantha Markle and her father, Thomas Markle, are not interested in tuning into the docu-series, which is surprising. She told TMZ that Thomas is more focused on his health than watching the Netflix series after suffering a stroke back in May. She further slammed the doc as disrespectful. I mean, I'm sure if I was watching them, I probably wouldn't be too happy either. But they kind of did it to themselves. So especially seeing Meghan's niece, who is Samantha Markle's daughter, talk about this, and seems like obviously they have no relationship. So it's really sad to see what happened. The breakdown of especially her relationship with her father.
I think that seeing that on the world stage, I can't imagine how difficult that was. Again, this shows how fractured that relationship really is. Mm-hmm. I am surprised they didn't have more to say, because Samantha Markle used to love talking to the press.
Yes.
So I'm very surprised she didn't have more to say on this.
I feel like if you don't have anything to say, you probably have nothing to back it up. So I feel like what Meghan is saying in this instance is 100% true. I mean, you can tell, just like by the home videos and things like that. And even what Doria said, I find it so hard to believe that Thomas, her father, would kind of be sucked into this world and, be manipulated by these paparazzis and being paid off, that, you never would think that your own dad would do that, and just kind of ghost her right before the wedding when she's reaching out to him. It was really sad to see. I'm sure that's, you're basically mourning your father, knowing that he's, just kind of out there for his own financial gain. So it's hard, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, as we've had mixed reactions to certain things about this docuseries, a lot of celebrities have as well. Gayle King weighed in after Andy Cohen said that, implying that this was kind of like a reality show. She came to their defense saying it's not a reality show. It's not. Well, Maren Morris said this profound hatred and annoyance at Meghan Markle, specifically, most commonly from women. I have to say it's unfathomable to me. People are saying, oh, a woman should never take a man away from his family. That's all that is. Have you seen this family? Well, Howard Stern, not a fan of this documentary. He said it's been painful. I wouldn't stay with it, but my wife wants to watch it. We have shows we want to watch, but they come off like such whiny bitches. I got to tell you, man, I just don't get it. It's just very weird to watch two people who keep screaming. We wanted our privacy. We wanted the press to leave us alone. And then what is their special that they put out on Netflix showing you them and their kids and their life? It's like the Kardashians, except boring. He added that he found it troubling. He also, what he actually said, what he found troubling about this was that they were filming before they even had this Netflix deal announced. They were filming those selfie videos on his Freedom flight and things like that. So it makes you think, how long has this been kind of in the works? Or if they just always had this in the back of their mind that they would, share their story this way.
Yeah, well, we did, we learned from one of the recent royal books, and I'm sorry, I can't remember which one, that they had put a Netflix series on the table when they were royals, and it got shot down because it's a very un-royal thing to do. So I think the lines of communication had been opened. And Harry says at some point that a friend recommended they film things so that they can remember the experience and sort of keep the story straight in case they ever needed it. And I'm inclined to think that that was it, because I think if they were filming specifically for Netflix, this is a funny industry thing, they would have filmed it in landscape so that it would have fit better on the TV screens, because that's what any network would tell you to do. So that was sort of a telltale for me that I think this was kind of an authentic keeping the record straight for themselves thing, because especially with Meghan's knowledge of, her experience as an actress, she would have known to flip the camera to flip the phone the other way.
That is true. Question, do we think the TIG is going to get relaunched?
I do wonder if she will relaunch it. It always seemed like it was on a temporary hiatus. And I think the landing page is still live. So that would be really, really interesting if she turned the TIG into like the new Goop.
I feel like she might. I mean, she said that was not just a hobby. That was like a career for her. So, so many interesting tidbits. And to help us break this down even further, Harry's decision to include the Panorama interview, which got a lot of people talking, how the royal family feels. Well, we wanted to get Jonathan Saccardoti's expertise. So here it is. How do you think the royals feel when Harry may have said, or he did say that the royal men feel a temptation to marry somebody who fits the mold, and that their engagement, interview, everything like that was orchestrated like a reality show?
Look, they said that, for example, their engagement interview that was broadcast after they announced their engagement was some sort of manipulated or scripted reality. That's quite weird to watch when what we're all actually glued to at the moment is literally 6 parts of their scripted so-called reality. And I think that it really just shows a dishonesty in how they're trying to portray themselves, because, of course, most TV is a little bit scripted or a little bit rehearsed. But the idea that when they were doing this interview, they chatted through the questions first and mentioned that they'd like to show the ring, those are all actually things that were done between the palace and the media via their comms teams as ways to make them feel more comfortable and more relaxed. So they can't have it both ways. Either they felt that the press were too unbridled, too wild, asked them things that they didn't want and all of that, or they had a problem with the behind the scenes discussions and negotiations that go on between all kinds of people who are being interviewed and the people interviewing them. But I think to complain on both sides is a little bit unfair. They are public figures. She did marry Prince Harry. He is in the royal family. These were all things that were relatively predictable. And I think that maybe they are things that would make them feel a bit sad. Maybe they are things that they don't like about their lives, but that's just how life is. Lots of people have things they don't like about their life. I think that if they actually wanted to minimize the intrusions and the general attention that the press and the media and the world gives them, well, it will be really easy. I mean, they don't need to be followed by a film crew. They have left the royal family. They don't need to have everything they do filmed. But actually, over the last couple of years, it seems like they've hired their own photographers and film crews to follow them more or less everywhere, and not just to catch the official moments like happens with the royal family, the working royals here in the UK, but also to catch them blubbing on their chaise longue covered with an Hermes throw, or recording themselves from the very beginning, from the moment they left the UK. They were recording themselves on their phones. Now that's got to look suspicious to people. Why were they doing that? Who was Prince Harry addressing when he looked into his mobile phone and said, nobody knows the real truth, we know the real truth? Who was he talking to back then? Had they already had talks about making a documentary, about making this reality show? Who were they recording these for? There she was recording hers from Canada with, in this odd pose, talking to herself on her phone with her knee up and this towel over her hair just to look normal again, and crying into the camera. Really, there's something really performative about their victimhood that I think alienates them to so many people. I know that there's a vogue for victimhood today, and they seem to have decided to tap into it. And they are proving that vogue is profitable because they're making massive amounts of money out of this. Mm-hmm. But just one other part that stood out actually, while I'm on that line of thinking, there's one moment at which Harry said, talking about the run-up to their wedding, that there were things that started to appear in the press. And he said it was amazing what people would do for huge amounts of money. Now, he wasn't actually talking about him and Meghan making this series of 6 whingy films. He was talking about other people who have much less money than they do, selling the odd photo of them in the earlier parts of their lives to the media. But I think that it's very telling that he was condemning those people for that, when in actual fact, many people see what they're doing now as speaking for enormous amounts of money in a way that is extremely damaging and sad and upsetting to other people within both of their families. As people who talk about family a massive amount, and as people who talked about compassion at one point as one of their sort of brand values, they don't seem to be showing much compassion to her family or to his family. In fact, they're making a 6-part Netflix documentary that's being broadcast all about their squabbles and arguments in minute detail with both families. I don't think that's a normal way to behave.
No, you make a good point about the money. Definitely. What do you think Kate and William's reaction will be to the story about how they first met, how Meghan made it seem like they were a bit cold to her since she's a hugger, and that they keep up this, royal facade even behind closed doors?
Yeah, that was another shocker in there, that the royal family is formal. Who would have thought? And I think that the idea that formality extended behind the scenes a bit, I mean, I guess that's possible. Maybe William and Catherine are a bit formal. But, I read a thing this morning that said, I think most people prefer the British stiff upper lip to the weak, trembling bottom lip of these two, who always seem to be blubbing and crying about the strangest of things. When you meet your partner's family for the first time and they're not necessarily as into hugging as you are, so what? Who cares? Why are we listening to these sorts of whinges? It's almost as bad as when we had to hear about their little squabble about bridesmaid dresses at that multi-million-pound wedding that we all paid for with our tax money. Again, I just don't think this stuff resonates with ordinary people. I don't think they're sympathetic towards these sorts of whinges. They are interested in it. There's no doubt about that, because we're all watching it. But, I'm pleased to say that you and I have watched it so that other people maybe don't have to. I'd certainly not say it was gripping viewing.
No, definitely. Do you think the royal family is breathing a sigh of relief, though, today, since there weren't those big bombshells that they were nervous about, at least not yet?
Well, so far, yes. I don't think there was very much in there that was particularly new or that would have worried them too much. It was repetition of the same old gripes, repetition of the same sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think they may be breathing a sigh of relief on that front. But, there are 3 more of these to come. There was quite a chunk of it, which felt a bit like filler to me, but it was also if you did listen to what they were saying, quite incendiary, all about not necessarily Meghan and Harry, actually, but about them or the documentary makers' ideas of the British Empire, colonialism, and then the Commonwealth as a sort of continuation of that. And I think that was part of their ongoing effort to paint the royal family and to paint Britain more largely as massively racist. Again, I think this idea that they are somehow the antidote to some systemic racism in Great Britain is just massively misjudged on their part as a message. The idea that Prince Harry, who dressed up in a Nazi uniform, which they did address briefly, but then who also called one of his colleagues a racist P word for Pakistani, who referred to another colleague at one point in the army, I think, as a raghead. I think this is not somebody I would be taking racism lessons from, but by virtue of the fact that he married a biracial person, married a mixed race woman, suddenly now is a paragon of anti-racism. I mean, I'm married a mixed race person, but I don't go out there assuming that I've somehow inherited this sense of what it feels like to grow up not white. I certainly don't think that Prince Harry, of all people in the royal family, is necessarily the antidote to that.
Yeah, I feel like we can talk about this for days, but there were some bright spots in all of this. And in our pint-sized palace, we saw glimpses of Archie and Lily in the docu-series. I mean, what did you make of that personal footage? Harry being a bird watcher. I love it.
The kids are so cute. I feel like a lot of us really related to the, like the first birthday with Archie and watching Lily walk around. And it was really, I really loved those inside glimpses of them as a happy family. And they do seem like a really happy family. And I'm going to agree with our commenter earlier in the show that said, I just want them to move on, get it all out and then move on with your important work and your happy family and your really privileged, beautiful life. And seeing the kids reminded me of that. Like, I think they are a happy family. So I just kind of want them to get on with their lives.
I agree with you. I think after the book, let's put this to bed. Let's close this chapter and just move on. But then, it raises the question I said before, where do they kind of fit in this landscape? Because this seems like to be the only way people are really paying attention. So it's going to be interesting over the next few years how they navigate this next chapter in their lives. But we'll be recapping it every step of the way.
We'll be here.
Yes. All right. Well, that is it for this week's show. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say and we want to read it. So please keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we will be breaking down the next 3 episodes of the docuseries next week. So stay tuned. I'm sure, like I said, it's going to be a lot to talk about. We'll see you next week. Bye. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.